Auto insurance can all seem the same until it comes time to use it. So don't get stuck paying more for less coverage. Switch to USAA Auto Insurance and you could start saving money in no time. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of It's Not All Rainbows. I'm your host, Lindsay Goodman. I'm a certified trauma recovery coach, and I'm also a survivor of abuse in a queer relationship. I'm here to help you figure out what's really going on in your relationship to help get you out and on the road to recovery. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how you are always going to be the problem to an abusive person. Everyone else around them is the problem. They're never the problem. Before we dive in, I want to talk about my struggles and successes. A struggle is that I don't know. I don't really have anything terrible right now, I guess. I'm doing okay. Feeling pretty run down lately. Don't really have a good reason for it. Feel like I can't make it through the day without nodding off a little bit. But a success is that I'm doing great, I guess. Having an episode where I'm having a hard time even finding a little thing that's a struggle is good. Next week I'll be back with more and it'll be a struggle for sure. That's life, it comes and goes. So I guess with nothing else to say about struggles and successes, I'll go ahead and talk about how you are the problem. So when you meet an abusive person, odds are that off the bat, they're going to dive in with their sob stories, with their, oh, this is what I've been through. Oh, this ex did this to me. Oh, this ex did that to me. Trying to gain your empathy, trying to make it seem like every relationship ended because of someone else. And just here they are, just ready for a healthy relationship to come along because everyone else that's come along has just been a problem. Okay, so maybe you're talking to them and their ex-girlfriend is a B word and she's super pretentious and just everyone around her, she's always got a this, she's always got a that, and she was too much for them. She was too hard for them to have to deal with, and they just want someone else. And it was just, again, she was a B word. She was just horrible. So whatever, she's gone. Their ex-wife or their ex-husband, whoever, whatever, was crazy. They had mental health issues. They did X, Y, and Z. When we broke up, she had a collapse. She was doing this. She was doing that. She was living in her car. She was refusing to sign papers, which later you find out, a year after you were told that the ex refused to sign papers, you realize it's actually the abuser who refused to sign the papers and was keeping that person trapped, but everything's being blamed on that person. Well, I would be divorced, but I can't get divorced because she's crazy and I can't get a hold of her and she never responds to me. Every time I email her, she either sends me an angry email back or blah, blah, blah. So I'm just kind of stuck here, right? And then when you are leaving them, or maybe they discarded you or whatever, you were the abuser. You were the one that causing a problem. Maybe you have mental health issues. You're ruining their life. You're keeping the kids from them. You stole their dog. Whatever it is, right? These are all the things, we've all heard it. If you've ever interacted with an abusive person, you know, quote unquote, the horrible qualities of each and every person they've ever dated. That made it so that the abuser was the victim in all of those situations. And then hopefully you're not hearing your own smear campaign, because one thing that I learned was I had heard a couple things in my smear campaign, the one that was being launched against me, although I've talked about it before. When you leave, the smear campaign has already been going on for a very long time. They've been planting those, she's crazy, she's abusive, she won't let me do this, she's controlling, she's, blah, 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 for a long time. So that when you leave, they can tell everyone, do you see what I mean? Do you see what I told you? She's crazy. She's the problem. I'm actually just going to date this next person really quick because I'm just trying to be happy and move on from that crazy person, right? But I learned very quickly that anyone who's telling you the smear campaign, unless literally say it's your best friend you've known forever, and they're like, hey, I heard some stuff that your abuser, they know it's your abuser, they know you're trying to get away. I heard some stuff your abuser's trying to say about you. And just so you know, I blocked them and I went through on Instagram and blocked everybody who follows them because I don't want anything to do with it. I know it's a smear campaign, blah, blah, blah. An even better thing to do would be for that person to just not say anything at all. But I'm just saying, if you are hearing something from someone in that way, where it's maybe this person saying, hey, I support you, your abuser sent me a message saying that you did XYZ. They were like, let me see new screenshots, blah, blah, blah. So I just blocked them. I just want you to know that I'm not taking any part in this. That's showing support. That's showing that they understand coercive control, what's going on here, etc. But I did hear a couple of the things at first before I started blocking people or not responding to people or just being like, yeah, I knew they'd say that. Thanks, whatever, bye. Um, if you know what's going on, what they're saying about you, again, you've probably heard what they've said about other people. And one thing that we know for sure is that the people who come after you, because there will be more, will also be the problem here. Whatever happened with that person, the reason that that person didn't get to stick around long enough, or the reason why they got discarded, or whatever it is going to be their fault. It's never going to be the abuser. They're never going to be the one who says, yeah, um, I just, whatever, I was, well, they're not going to say they're abusing someone, right? They're never going to come to you and say, oh, it was a mutual agreement, or we just couldn't communicate. Like, if you ever hear me talk about why my marriage ends, you'll never hear me. I will, well, one, I won't say, it was all my fault. I did this thing, or this happened, and I gave up on everything. You'll never hear me, like, take all the blame and be like, oh, I'm just such a horrible person. I can't believe if I could go back. You'll never hear that. And you'll also never hear me say that about my ex-husband. You'll never hear me say, well, he did this, or he didn't do that, or blah, blah, blah. I will say, the truth is, he didn't know himself. I didn't know myself when we got married. He didn't realize he couldn't be married. I didn't know I didn't want to be married. There was a lot of just not working, right? Two people just didn't work out. You will never hear me say he did this, even with any other ex besides the abuser. You will never hear me say, I don't care who I'm talking to, even my best friends who know the stories, they know me, they know my struggles, they know, maybe they know my ex-husband or maybe they know whatever. You'll never hear me say, well, if he or she hadn't done this or if they hadn't whatever, you'll never hear me say that because the fact of the matter is that I'm not out here to gain someone's sympathy, to get someone to feel a false sense of security with me, to try to gain some weird connection with somebody, blah, blah, blah. Later, if I know you more and I know you really well, I might say, well, this is something I really struggle with in my marriage, or this is, that relationship. Although, to be honest, I spent so much time either a couple years with my abuser and then was married / with my ex-husband for so long that any other relationship before that, like, I don't really remember that much about it. It's all very vague to me because it was like a long time ago and, whatever. But you'll never hear me say that another person is the problem because that's just usually, again, unless abuse is involved, that's just usually not the problem. On that note, with unless abuse is involved, a lot of abusive people are going to be telling you that their ex was abusive, that their ex was controlling, that their ex was this, that their ex was that. And one of the things we want to do with that, so if you meet someone and again, they're trying to give you, I'm sorry, if I meet you and I go on a date with you, I'm not going to give you any information about my past. None of it. If you ask me questions, if you ask me too many questions that are too personal, too fast, I'm not going on a second date with you. If it just so happens to come up and someone says maybe like, oh, have you been single for a while or whatever, then of course I'll say like, yeah, it's been about actually going on 3 years now. Definitely not like later on I'll tell you more about, those things, whatever, why I chose to be single for so long, whatever. And if that person's like, awesome, yeah, I've got things I'm sure we'll talk about too. Great, keep going, keep it light, whatever. Again, if that person's coming up to me saying, oh my gosh, my ex is crazy. Oh my gosh, my ex was a drug addict. Oh my gosh, whatever. Obviously, if your ex is a drug addict and this has caused you a lot of trauma, this is something that we're eventually going to want to talk about, and I would love to support you. I hope you have other supports too. That doesn't necessarily say anything bad about you if you have an ex partner who has had some kind of struggle that really hurt you, or maybe was the reason you ended your relationship. That's a little different from what I'm talking about. But when there's a smear campaign, like maybe that person, I don't know, drank a little bit more to cope with the abuse. And then the abuser's like, yeah, well, they're an addict and yeah, they can't, whatever. And they were always this and they were always that because whatever it is, they're just trying to make this person look bad. So again, if you're coming up to me early on and you're telling me that your marriage ended because of that person, I'm not going to believe you. First of all, I'm going to assume that you are running a smear campaign. It's all on the delivery. Again, if you're like, you get cheated on. Unfortunately, I was cheated on. I would love to talk to you more about that later. I'm going to get into that with you now because it's just a lot. And the other person's like, totally get it. Yeah, I would love to learn about that when I'm learning about you more, right? I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, there really shouldn't be an exchange of deepest, darkest trauma so early on. And that can help you. I guess, some people will say that because we're out here sharing more information about coercive control and what it looks like and how it begins and what the red flags are, some abusers may be leveling up and listening to this information and learning how to behave better for longer or mask for longer. And that is true. So, again, that's why it's important to take it slow. That's why it's important to keep your head up, keep your eyes open, pay attention to boundaries, actions speak louder than words, all of that good stuff. But again, that can help you weed out a potentially abusive person. Because if that person's just going to slap all that stuff in your face, be digging for information from you, that's a red flag. And some people say, oh, I have ADHD, or oh, I have autism, or oh, I have, and I can't help it. Explain that to the person. Say, I have ADHD, just so you know, I tend to be really upfront really fast. I'm going to try to behave myself. Feel free to remind me if I start talking about something because I really would like to take this slow and be able to share this information for a time that we feel like we know each other a little better, or something like that, because I totally understand. I also have ADHD, potentially some other funny things going on. I don't mean like funny things, but we're all like a cocktail of funny things that make us unique and make us who we are and make some things more difficult than other things, or we struggle a little bit more, or we have workarounds more than another person might. So totally. And here's the thing when it comes to stuff like that, instead of making excuses and trying to make it okay for that behavior to happen, because again, that behavior can potentially lead to abuse or you being abused. We do need to continue to learn about it and talk about it and find ways to cope. Just like, let's say, for example, I do have ADHD. How did I get through school? I don't know. I don't remember. I'm very intelligent. I'm not very organized. So I had to find ways to cope to get through that. Or if I did a training or a program or whatever in my adult life, I had to find ways to cope, ways to work around the things that I struggle with that other people might not, right? So the same with dating. If we have added layers, quote unquote, that make it so that we might not be able to protect ourselves as well, or might not be able to take things slow as well, we need to find coping skills to be able to do that, because we don't want to become a part of abusive person's story that they're telling someone else. Obviously, that's the least of our worries. We're worried about the abuse that we're going through, the physical abuse, the mental abuse, the financial abuse. These people can absolutely destroy your life, at least temporarily, sometimes for a very long time. We don't want to be a part of any of that. But since this episode is about being a part of their story and being the villain in their story, we don't want that, right? So, whatever you can do, again, you don't have to walk around paranoid, assuming everyone's abusive. Just be like, well, Lindsay said this potentially, so I'm just not going to talk to anyone ever. You don't have to do that. Some people do choose to do that. It has taken me a very long time to even want to talk to anybody that I don't already know very well and trust. It's not easy. Um, I've definitely come a long way with that, but it's worth it to beware of people and just understand the red flags and understand what coercive control looks like and trust your intuition, which is very hard for most of us because we were just never taught that. It takes time, it takes practice. But again, in order to avoid becoming the villain in someone's story, we got to rein it in. And we have to be smart and we have to look out for each other and we have to be honest with ourselves. If you start Googling, is this normal? Or, you know, is it common to move this fast in lesbian relationships? That's what I looked up. If it says yes, still, if you're looking it up, you're probably thinking that it's not normal or healthy, right? Listen to that first feeling. Listen to the thing that made you be like, let me check into this. My point is, if you just came out late like I did. I came out late. I was like, why are we moving so fast? This can't be normal. They're saying it's normal. Okay. Trust your intuition. Trust those things that come up. I know that we like to connect with people. And if you're going on a date with someone you just matched with, you want to see if it's a good match. You want to see if you can meet again. You're excited about it. Someone new, putting yourself out there. I totally get that you want to be like, you're also divorced. Oh my gosh, we have that in common. Or you also have a parent that passed away. Totally got it. We can bond over this, bond about it later, bond about it when you're safe. Okay. Please, I just want you to be safe. Don't want you to be the villain, but also I want you to know that if you are in that situation, you are going to be the villain. And it's something that we kind of have to be okay with. You don't have to be okay with it in the way that you're like, this is fine, everything's fine. I love being a villain, but in a way that's like, there's nothing I can do about this. This person is abusive. This person, I knew they were smearing everybody else who came before me. That's what they did to those people. I'm not quote unquote special here. They're not just doing this to me. This is what they do. This is their behavior. They're going to do it to the people who come after me too. I'm not going to have a part of it. Again, I'm blocking everybody who tries to come at me with, oh, I heard you did this to them. Oh, you're so horrible. Oh, I can't believe blah, 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 block, 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 block. Right? Protect yourself, protect your peace, start focusing on your healing. And that's it. That's all I have for you. So thank you to everyone for your time and listening to this episode today. I hope it was helpful to you. Please go do something nice for yourself. Go drink some water. I'll be back next week with more.